Good morning, everyone. We're continuing here in the words of the CHOFETZ CHAIM, Shmiras HaLashon, how to guard our mouths from speaking Lashon HaRa and the like, and he's talking about the positive commandments that a person will transgress when they speak Lashon HaRa. And sometimes, if you are the one listening to somebody else speaking Lashon HaRa, and you accept their words, which means that you don't do anything to push them away, you are also going to be transgressing the mitzvah of rebuking one's fellow Jew. Going, for example, you see that your friend is beginning to speak negatively about somebody else, and you're actually watching over here. You're watching Ruvain tell Lashon HaRa over to Shimon. And you know that Shimon's going to listen to him. And you're standing there watching the whole thing. Now you're at tzaddik. You're not going to accept the words of Lashon HaRa as being Lashon HaRa. But you know that Shimon is going to accept the words that he hears. And therefore he's going to transgress the mitzvah of being makabel, of accepting Lashon HaRa. Even if you who's standing there watching is unsure, maybe Shimon's going to accept the words, maybe he's not going to accept the words, but you see where this conversation is going. That's the way that it usually works in Lashon HaRa. Normally, you could know the way the conversations work and you can detect when the Lashon HaRa is coming, and you know based on previous experience whether the person who's listening is going to accept it or not. So even if you're in doubt right now that maybe it's going to become Lashon HaRa and maybe he's going to accept it, you're obligated to rebuke the Baal Lashon HaRa, the person who's speaking Lashon HaRa, so you shouldn't finish the sin. You tell him, listen, Reuven, what are you doing? You're saying Lashon HaRa over here. Stop. And therefore, if you end up leaving, let's say, Reuven, to continue telling over his Lashon HaRa about somebody else, certainly you have transgressed the positive commandment over here of not giving rebuke to your fellow Jew when you could have, which would prevent him from continuing in the sin that he's doing, or to stop him for the next time. Now the CHOFETZ CHAIM brings down over here in the notes that what if you're listening and you say, you know what, now's not the right time to rebuke him. I'm going to wait till after the conversation, but I am going to give him teichacha, I'm going to rebuke him, I'm going to make sure he doesn't speak Lashon HaRa again. Is that considered good enough for a person that they did not transgress the prohibition of being mechiach, of giving rebuke over here, because they intend to rebuke later? So this says the CHOFETZ CHAIM, let me ask you a question. If you were walking by McDonald's and you saw a Yid who was gorging himself on Treif, on Chazer, and the like, would you say, okay, you know what, now I'm not going to say anything, but later, tomorrow, the next day, I'll tell him, you really shouldn't eat Treif. He says, really, in reality, again, this might not work in our generation because of the sensitivities of people and where people are, different people holding in different places in the Yiddishkeit. But imagine that it is someone that you knew that you could do this to. You would go immediately and say, what are you doing? You're eating treif. Why are you eating that? So I would stop him on the spot to prevent him from continuing in the pathway of sin that he is in. Says the CHOFETZ CHAIM, what's different about a person speaking Lashon HaRa or about a person eating treif? And this is something for us to think about because it's a true mashal, a parable over here. Just as if I saw a person eating treif, eating chazer, I would be repulsed in such a thing, and most likely, if the situation was proper, I would go and I would say something to him. So too, when you see somebody saying words of Lashon HaRa, it's like treif that's coming out of their mouth. And therefore you have to go and you have to stop them. And if you don't, says the CHOFETZ CHAIM, you are transgressing the positive commandment over here of giving rebuke to your fellow Jew. Now, of course, we live in a world of great fragility and sensitivity. Many people cannot handle rebuke anymore these days. Criticism, you just criticize one little thing, and they crumble into pieces. So take this halacha that the CHOFETZ Chaim is saying with a grain of salt, and you're going to have to learn how to use it in the right way. However you're going to do to be able to stop another person from saying Lashon HaRa, that's that much we can take in the CHOFETZ Chaim. We have an obligation to them and to the people that are listening and to ourselves and to the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us to try to stop our fellow Jews from speaking Lashon HaRa. Have a wonderful day, everyone.